Okay, so Macy, I am so delighted to be able to chat with you today. And I really want to talk to you all about your Passion and Presence program, which is an incredible body of work.
Mm.
Towards the end of our program, I have done the first cohort of your Passion and Presence program. And towards the end of it, I was referring to it as the Oracle,
Oh,
because there was just this wealth of information in there. And yeah, I would love to just chat with you more today, really about, the essence of it. And I think it might be interesting for people to hear a little bit about where it evolved from. Yeah, and
yeah,
a little bit about the story, because I know have been and still are very involved in Hakomi, but it could be
yes.
really interesting just to hear and understand the evolution of that into passion and presence.
Yeah, that sounds like a great start. But before we go there, I just love looking at your face as you're describing the oracle and what you received and the wealth of information that tickles me and delights me. So thank you for that.
Mm.
Um, I wish I had a really sexy story around the genesis of this work. Um, I sort of take a different facet depending sometimes on who I'm talking with. Like, um, sometimes I talk about how even as a teenager, Eros was really intriguing to me, though I didn't name it as such. I just found it fascinating, not only sexuality, but this notion of life force energy that
Mhm.
were conduits, that were custodians of this life force energy that literally lights us up, turns us on, and is the source, if this is a worldview that you accept, it's mine, of creativity, certainly of birth, but then creativity in all of its forms. And so there's so much when Esther Perel talks about eroticism, she says it's sexuality informed by the imagination. And so when I finally decided to take up sexuality, it was really late in life. I mean, I had decades already of experience as a psychotherapist, as a trainer of Hakomi mindful somatic psychotherapy. I discovered that in that field, most people are focusing on performance and functionality, the mechanics of sex.
Mm.
So people are inclined, if they go for help at all, to maybe go to a medical provider, but often medical providers aren't really trained in sexuality and can get uncomfortable going there, or there's such a lack of information and safety and so much taboo around addressing this. So if they bring it to a psychotherapist, they might get kind of a similar reaction, but as sex therapists, they're more likely to go because, like, the belief that something's not working. I'm not getting aroused as I should. What's wrong with me? My erections are not as stable as I want. What's wrong with me? I'm just not feeling much desire. And as you know better than most, there very often is a psychobiological component to that, but there could also be a relational component.
Mm.
And there could be so much of it is about what is my connection to myself? What is my relationship to my own erotic energy? And so much of us have diminished that spark because of cultural messaging. So all of the sort of more mechanical stuff didn't really light me up. It didn't capture my erotic imagination. It was actually training with Tammy Nelson and Esther Perel. They were teaching something together that I took where they were infusing the conversation with words like meaning and the
Mm.
poetry of sex and language like when we finding that optimal balance between self connection and other connection. And when that balance is off, just like when the balance of safety and risk is off, it's very hard to commune with Eros. And if you and I are in a long term relationship and I'm worried now about losing our connection, I'm more apt to exile parts of me that you may reject. And each time I do that, it's like my own light is starting to dim. So when we entered this level, and I know for some this sounds like, whoa, wait, this is getting a little out there.
Mm,
Then I was like, okay, now this lines up with
mm,
my training in Hakomi. I have a means, a way, an access route for this rich, very multi-layered conversation. But I'll
mm,
just say one more thing in the chronology, which is so that was kind of 2008, 9, and 10 that I was studying and learning. 2011, I offered my first couples retreat. And this work started as a sexual awareness and enrichment practice that I offered around the world in retreat fashion. And since then, in the past 15 years, it really morphed into a body of work, a whole approach to sex therapy, because I saw that was really needed.
mm, mm. Wow. And I think, from my experience of it is that it's so that the work is so tender,
Mm,
and
mm,
I know in the program that you have, I think really valuable pieces where you have the demo sessions,
yeah,
and some people have very graciously offered to be part of this, which is incredible.
incredible.
Yeah, really. And one thing that you do in that, which I think is amazing, is you have one demo where you also add your commentary.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, just from a learning perspective, this is gold,
Mm,
to have you kind of, I guess, almost like analyze like your work. You're not analyzing the couple, obviously, their process is their process, but you're giving commentary on you as a therapist and how you're working with the couple and the many different facets of whether it's a Comey base or the passion and presence approach. Um, and I just always found that was really, really helpful. And
mm,
just, it's such a tender place that you arrive to with people, and
mm, mm,
sometimes it's the most, like a really precious need, or just like you say, this part that's been exiled and it could have happened years ago, like during childhood, and just to almost like meet that part and for the other part of the partner to be a witness to that, it can just
mm.
really bring so much compassion and
Yes.
softness into the relationship. Like it really gets rid of the like tit for tat that may be happening in relationships, which might also come across in regular like kind of relationship therapy. Whereas I think with passion and presence, it just really offers this reservoir of compassion for everyone,
Mm,
like the
mm,
the therapeutic relationship, obviously, but for the partners that they come into this really deep place of compassion for each
mm,
other. Yeah.
I love that. Could we? I feel like breathing into that, and
Mm,
and I feel touched as you talk.
mm,
Yeah. Mm. It's that word tender that's like
mm,
speaking to my heart right now. And well, first of all, it's cool to get that reflection. I haven't heard that exactly, so I'm glad that's valuable. But you're right. Like, first of all, the territory is tender. And whenever something is tender, we have parts that are safeguarding
mm,
what's precious and tender. And what typically happens in partner sexuality and long-term relationships is that people meet each other's protectors, which can actually feel kind of tough and inaccessible. Um, and a lot of hurt happens through that. And these gatekeepers are serving such an important function. And so I think it's really important for us when we're working with couples to value both kind of the gatekeeper or protector and its sacred work, and to know that there's something very precious being protected.
Mm.
And when I'm working with partners, I think hopefully the way that I'm relating to them is letting those soft, tender parts feel like I have an ally over there. They respect the way I need to protect myself, but they see me
Mm.
and they want to take care of me too. And so when we do that kind of holding and gently allowing each partner to, first of all, touch into their own tenderness and then let that tenderness be seen, it does tenderize the field between. It does awaken the heart's compassion. You're absolutely right. And then there's this sense of we're not really so far apart, like we're very interconnected here. But we have to feel that connection in order to meet our difficulties in this spirit of, I'm on your side. So that starts with us as the practitioner. I'm in each of your sides or all of your sides, however many partners are involved. And I'm also working for all parts of you. And then when people can start to relate to their own parts with that tenderness, it just builds from there. So I'm very glad. And we have to go slow
Mm.
for that to happen.
Yeah.
I have to go slow.
Mm. And I think I guess my understanding, and you can maybe correct me on this, and how this approach is quite unique as well, is that when you're working with partners, that you're not necessarily going into the story of the moment, where maybe people might arrive into like the therapy office where they're maybe building their case, like I'm in
Yeah.
the right or whatever. And because you just go into the body and it's really the wisdom of the body and it can be very disarming in a way. It removes all of that, like building the case and those, I guess that it is the protector really that you're kind of working with. But I think that's so unique because
Mm,
in many ways, if a couple or a partners, if they are coming for relationship therapy, in many ways, they've probably been doing that outside of the therapy office where they've been building their case and I'm in the right. And maybe that is replicated. Whereas I think when they come and, with the passion and presence approach, there's a lot of disarming that happens, where it's just like when you trust the wisdom of the body and it feels like truth actually when
mm,
you learn to access that, when you learn to access that wisdom.
yeah.
And I think that has a very powerful effect on partners when they're able to access this very, very deep truth actually. Yeah.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, I have a bunch to say in response to
Mm.
that. So first is the building of the case thing. Um, Certainly happens when partners have had a lot of conflict around their difficulties and
Mm.
are looking for whose fault is it. And it's not their fault that they're doing that. Our culture kind of does that. It
Mhm.
sort of says, if there's a problem, somebody's at fault, and let's figure out who it is. It's you or it's you. And some people are too quick to assume responsibility, and others are too quick to point fingers. I find, though, that people still weave a narrative because that's what humans do, in our search for meaning and understanding. When we're suffering or we're perplexed by something, we try to figure it out. Like, why is this going on? The issue, though, is our story or narrative is the parts that construct a story are not speaking with the parts that are struggling. So we have to kind of get in there through the body, the felt sense, even just when you imagine making love with your partner right now, what does your body do?
Mm.
Can get us right to the crux of the matter more than why do you think you struggle or why do you think things are so problematic between you and when did they start breaking down and how did it used to be and what have you tried to do to make it better for yourselves? Like you can go on and on with that
Mm.
and
Mhm.
amass a lot of notes and clients are thinking great, they're taking notes because they're the expert and they're now going to tell me what the treatment plan is.
Mm.
This model is not about that at all. This is about you have an inborn treatment plan
Mm.
and an inborn plan for growing and becoming. And my job is to help you access it. So, yes, we're going to go right to the felt sense and start to deepen into what I metaphorically call the sexual operating system, which is essentially it's a metaphor for the neural networks that are storing memory, but it's accessing what we've encoded experientially and through sponging in other people's states that implicitly shapes our behaviors, feelings, and reactions. And all of that happens outside of awareness. So if we stay at the level of what I know, we're missing, we're not migrating to the sexual operating system. So, yes, the body speaks truth, and people can feel when their experience is anchored in truth. It's moving, literally, like it's moving, it's more grounded, it's more anchored, it's a discovery versus a discussion. It's an exploration, it's like a mining rather than explaining.
Mm.
And so I'm going back to pacing. We have to go slow. We have to be curious. We have to be allowing of what starts to emerge. We have to welcome what's here. Um, so it's more like of an unfolding or a midwifing of something much more natural and innate and organic.
Mm. Mhm. Mm. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's such a beautiful process. And I think one thing that was helpful about the Passion and Presence program as well is that we also had an opportunity to experience that, in the practice groups where you would, practice like a protocol with each other, or, it could be like a mindfulness practice. And it's really, I mean, and just for me personally as a learner, I'm a very experiential learner. So that was something that was really helpful for me to know going into the program, that
Yeah.
there was an experiential aspect to it.
Mhm.
Because I think for me anyway, just that worked really well for me. And I think um, it's a good way to really get into the material as well, to really feel it. I remember
Yeah.
you did like a group practice with us around the Eros cycle.
Mm.
And it's incredible to experience that, and I think then from there, I think when you have an experience of it, you have more confidence. Then you know it in your body, in your cells, and you have more confidence then, following the certification, following the program, that you can actually start to implement that as well. I think that's one thing that was really,
Mm.
really kind of
Mm.
helpful. Yeah.
I so love what you're saying. First of all, we completed in September, and
Mhm.
I needed to have a little bit of a recovery
I'm
because
sure.
it was a demanding thing since it was the first time.
Mhm.
And so it's sort of like you're reconnecting the wiring a little for me as
Mm.
you're naming these disparate facets. And I'm going, oh, yeah, right. That's a big part of it. And that's a big part of it. And
Mm.
that's going to be a bigger part of it next time because
Mhm.
um, as you know firsthand, there's a lot of material there. And
Mhm.
it's not something that people get in the first rinse. Right? And it's
Mhm.
certainly not what people are going to get from a cognitive download. There's just
Mm.
no way. So, this idea of knowing it from the inside out, getting it in your
Mm.
bones is really important to me. And
Mhm.
in this next training, we're going to have even more space for practicing during the class. Um, because just as I say, when I'm working with intimate partners, if they don't do something, if they don't practice something in our session, they're certainly not going to do it at home alone
Mm.
without support. And it's a total pattern break from the automatic. We
Mhm.
ourselves as practitioners, we're not going to just go like, well, I heard about this thing over the weekend, so let's try this out, but feeling like, but I'm sort of reading the instructions and trying to grok it as we're doing it. So when we've had a chance to practice it and try it on and feel what it's like in both the role of the facilitator and the person who's being invited into the process,
Mm.
I think it builds confidence to really apply it. And that's
Yeah.
what I want. That's what I want.
Yeah. I
Not
think
that
that's a
we have to know everything. I mean, I really want to relax. I think there's a lot of pressure that we tend to put on ourselves. I put on myself to do things right and do it well, and especially around this delicate territory, and um, but there's so much room to not be perfect. It's all an exploration.
Mm.
It's all an exploration.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Um, and I'm curious, Macy, from your perspective in terms of like the work you do, let's say with your clients, of the different aspects of passion and presence. What are the parts? Because I know you have stuff around like the PEP barriers, you have the Eros cycle, the passion pyramid, like you've many different kind of frameworks within a greater framework. Like, is there a specific aspect of it that you find is really helpful in your therapy work?
Well, the starting ground for everything, and this is where I'm back to this go slow mode,
Mm-hmm.
is in our buck up, just deal with it, keep on keeping on kind of culture.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I'm making gross generalizations, but we've sort of, again, big generalization, learned how to minimize our experience, our bodily experience. Let's go back there. So if something's not working for us or we're feeling uncomfortable, like we're good managers, we'll soldier through. And that's highly problematic. It's problematic because every time we do that, we're coupling eroticism with discomfort, with um, disconnection, with push energy. We're leaving ourselves. We're in a should mind. And passion and presence is like the antidote or aspires to be the antidote to all of that. It's all about what feels right and good right now. And that is hard to sometimes access. It's impossible to access when we're on the automatic because automatic means we don't have to be present. Our habits are running the show. And so if we want to shift our erotic life, we have to interrupt those habits with a pause. And so my favorite tool is a timer that
Ah,
people can use so that whether they're in distress or not, they're getting out of the mindset that this is an express train.
mm,
So if I get on, there's no getting off. That is really um, probably the biggest barrier for people who've had erotic wounding in particular,
mm,
where safety is essential. So building in ways to have more safety and more wakefulness. So passion and presence has a spiritual component called awakened
mm,
intimacy, which is essentially when partners say, we're going to use the erotic channel as a growth path. Like whatever arises, and plenty is going to come up, we're going to see that as an opportunity to reintegrate something, heal, grow, become wiser, more compassionate. So whether we have this aspiration, that level of the work, or we want to uncouple the present from earlier times that may have been wounding, we have to come off of automatic. We have to interrupt and normalize, like make it okay that we're going to study what's showing up so that we can try something different. Um, that to me is when people say yes to that, it's such a radical reorientation
mm,
to sex. Um, and you'll notice I've used the word eroticism more often than sex because people often think of sex as an act.
mm,
And eroticism is so much bigger as expression of life force. It can take
mm,
many different forms. But I'm just going to say that that's where I start with almost everyone. And then
mm,
from there, we can see what is wanted, what is needed next to support the unfolding of their growth plan and their erotic expression.
mm,
What
mhm.
did you find? I'm curious. Um, I told you I might ask you some questions. So,
Yeah.
which of those frameworks has somehow taken root in you?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, probably it depends on who I'm working with. And yeah, I really like the PEP, the pure erotic potential, um, which are, we talk a lot about kind of like different barriers to that, and also with the passion pyramid as well. Like this has been something I've used as well in sessions. And I mean, I think overall, it's that sense of using this for growth, actually, I
Yeah.
mean, that's kind of revolutionary in many ways. Um, and I think so many people come, uh, to therapy or, you know, to a mentor or a coach, and they're feeling quite broken, actually.
Yeah.
And so to use it in that way as a way of, well, actually, we can alchemize this, we can work with this, we can embrace this, and the person really can kind of figure it out through the wisdom of their own body. I think that for me has been really, really helpful, and to have a framework around that,
Yes.
using like the the Hakomi, like the deepening statements, the contact statements.
Yeah.
I found that really helpful. Like that would have been kind of very new to me, although I have a therapy background.
Yeah.
Um, that felt very, very powerful as well to like that it has that really strong foundation of Hakomi in it as well, you
It
know.
stands on the shoulders of Hakomi. I'm
Yeah.
celebrating my 4th decade, 40th anniversary with
Mm,
Hakomi this
really?
year. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And so as a methodology,
Mm,
how do we explore? How do we access the body?
mm,
And centering mindfulness as a state that
mhm,
becomes a bridge to all of that implicit learning
mhm,
comes from that experience
mhm,
completely. But woven in, as you know, is somatic trauma therapy and parts work and polyvagal theory
mhm,
and
mhm,
the awakened intimacy piece. But I'm so glad that you again centered on the growth piece
mm.
because that's really different than the repair model, right? I'm
Yeah.
going to a mechanic. Let's figure this out so the car can run well, and hopefully not break down again.
Mhm,
And
mm,
if you consider the science of living systems,
mhm,
we know that they cycle always. It's never like this. And cycle through phases of maintenance where the car is running quite smoothly,
mhm,
and then growth phases. And growth phases, they're ushered in, usually there's some kind of problem, quote unquote, pain point,
mhm,
let's just say. And so, no matter where we are in our life, how wise, how loving, how proficient we are as a lover,
mhm,
if we look at evolution and living systems, we're going to hit another bump that's going to invite us to grow more into our fuller selves and have more of our pure erotic potential. So I think it's so helpful in this model to see sex as a package deal. It's joyful and it can be very challenging and it can bring up feelings throughout the lifespan, including grief at many different junctures,
mhm,
because change involves some degree of loss. It invites more opportunity, but there's so often a letting go and our inability or our lack of just anybody ever saying that around sex can make it feel so personal, like
mhm,
or like either I'm being punished or I'm the broken one instead of going, actually, no, this is, I mean, I know you're very into Taoism. Hakomi is rooted in Taoism and Buddhism. This is the flow of life.
mhm,
This is the flow of life. So, yes, growth. Sex can
mm.
be about growth.
Absolutely. I mean, that can be just so revolutionary for people. And I know there's a lot around befriending as well. Yeah, which goes hand in hand with that kind of growth model, and again, like really rooted in compassion and yeah, befriending whatever is coming up, that we don't. A lot of times it can be either shunned, where we're like, I don't want to look at it, or yeah, there's like shame or that sense of being broken. There's something wrong with me. And it's really that sense of, yeah, meeting everything openly, and warmly, compassionately as well. So it's such a beautiful way to work with partners and people in relationships. Um, I'm curious, Macy, who do you think passion and presence is for?
Mm, good question. Now, as a model, as a way of orienting to sexuality, everyone, boy, have I needed this model over the years. I'm
Mm,
so glad that I have it to rest on.
mm,
Um, I imagine you mean who's it for in terms of those people who might take the training.
Yeah, in terms of the training. Yeah. Who's
Yeah.
the training for? Sorry. Yeah.
So I'm pausing because I've recently gotten that question from people who come from different backgrounds. It's it's a professional training,
Hmm.
so it's for people who want tools and a method to work with intimate partners around their erotic life. Now, who would those people be? So certainly psychotherapists, relationship therapists, health and medical providers, coaches, um, are the primary people, sex and relationship coaches are the primary people that this is designed for a few reasons. One, those practice sessions involve one or two people being the therapist and two people being intimate partners. Like the learning happens through that model. But you yourself and many others have said, even in my one on one work with people,
Hmm.
this is informing that so much. So I've been getting this question more and more often. What if I don't work with partners? And just from what people like you have been telling me, I've started to say, well, you'll be trained to work with intimate partners. That's going to be the model. Most 90% of the time, our practice sessions will have that context. Um, but there's certainly things that you can grasp. I mean, you are a Taoist feminine sexual health practitioner.
Hmm.
So what what are some ways that it's supporting your work?
Yeah. So, I mean, just to say, yeah, essentially, I came to Passion and Presence. I guess I was looking for like a deepening of, in terms of learning, in terms of sexuality, intimacy, relationships. Through my work, I would have studied from a more Taoist approach to sexuality and that. And I was looking for something with a lot of integrity. And I have been
Mm.
searching for quite a while, actually.
Uh,
And when I came across Passion and Presence, I just felt this depth of integrity from the work.
mm,
And also, like I said, I do have like a therapy background, not as a psychotherapist, but more like as an occupational therapist. But there's a level of professionalism that I
yeah,
was looking for when it comes to sexuality training.
yeah,
And there's a lot of things out there and will suit different people depending on what their needs are. But I was
yeah,
certainly looking for something very professional with a lot of depth and integrity. Um, and so for me, I mostly work with women and vulva owners, both in a group setting and also one-to-one. And really, where I find that I often get a lot of women maybe who come to me. Actually, sometimes it can be early on in a relationship, where there has been challenges for them before, and they've either just met somebody and they're like, I really want to work on this because I want to be really able to open up in relationship. So a lot of the stuff that I've been working on is looking around, like some of it is around the PEP, the PEP, the pure erotic potential, and some of the barriers that come up there,
yeah,
particularly around shame, actually. And this
yeah.
is an area that I'm particularly interested, also given my own context. I grew up in Catholic Ireland, and there's a lot
Mm,
of shame and kind of repression around sexuality. And it was one of the reasons that I started to go more learn about this was I was like, there's got to be another framework out here.
mm,
That was
mm,
why I started to explore the world of sexuality like more than 20 years ago. And so I know there's one really good, amazing practice that you did with us as a group, and it's something that I often do in group work and also in one-to-one. And it was around the cultural messaging that we got, and whether that's like your cultural messaging within your family it could be around the school that you went to, like what was the messages you got in terms of sex ed, and it's also within the culture at large, like the society that you kind of grew up with. And I found that to be a really powerful practice. And then from there, then kind of just almost like establishing, well, what does sex mean to me as a person? What does sex mean to you? Like discovering your why is another great practice that you have. And
Mhm.
sometimes people are like, oh my gosh, I never even thought that sex could be healing, or that,
Yeah,
it could like be good for my nervous system, and
yeah.
um, so it's often around that, like kind of really building a foundation and looking at the cultural messaging, a lot of work around shame. I think that's
Mm,
a really, really important aspect of any sort of
mm.
sexuality work, no matter where you're from. And then it's kind of just opening up this whole new world. It's like having these master keys, and then you
Yeah.
open the door, and it's like, oh, okay, we can go in so many different directions. And as I mentioned, Maci, that I've been referring to it as the oracle, and just going in and looking. Oh yeah, there's so many different directions that you can
Yeah.
go with somebody. But I found it to be, yeah, like for me, I've mostly used it one to one, and like I said, also in kind of group work. But I found it to be hugely beneficial on those levels as well. Yeah.
Well, first of all, thank you for sharing, what's true for so many of us growing up in a shame-based culture. And
Yeah.
it's funny, we don't get a lot of this around career and life planning either. Like,
Mhm.
let's really see what you're about and find like how you can make a contribution in this world that's really aligned with the being you are. So let's start finding out like what do you enjoy and what's important to you. We don't even have that, generally,
Mhm.
but we certainly don't have that around sexuality. Nobody is
Mhm.
saying, let's use your experiences to start to collect up an understanding of like what works for you, what doesn't, what you need, what turns you on, what sex does mean for you, what you're wanting to have out of the experience. Because you just said people have no idea, like it's such a narrow definition. Really? Like there's actually a range, like what
Mhm.
drives me could be healing or having more vim and vigor or discovering certain parts of myself that I didn't know I had, like as a reclamation. Um, like there are so many reasons. And I love that metaphor of the keys, kind of to the vault or to the archive, the library, and pulling things out. But it makes me so happy to hear that you're doing that work with people of saying, yes, you can shape your experiences.
Mm.
Yes, you can center yourself and your needs. Yes, this is a worthwhile thing to explore. This part of you is waiting to be known. And it's not like a one-time process. As we migrate through life, things will inevitably change about what
Mm.
is satisfying to us, what the next threshold is for us to have access to more of our eroticism. So that's just great to hear. I love that.
Mhm.
So that's who it's for people who
Yeah.
want to do that. So yeah,
Mm. Yeah,
yeah,
and I know, you work a lot around, there's a big focus as well about couples who've been, or partners who've been together for a long period of time. You refer to it as like stage three partnerships. And
yeah.
yeah, so that's also a really interesting aspect as well. I don't know if you want to share a
Well,
little more
I'll,
about
I'll
that.
say I will say a little bit about that because um, the same issue can show up in partners who've been together for 5 years, but certainly over the decades is this sense like a loss of a discovery mindset.
Mm.
Like the feeling is, you're like a playbook. I've mapped your body. I know where to go to press the right buttons, and I know where to avoid because that's going to trigger you or not feel good to you. And so the whole spirit of discovery, improvisation, meeting fresh, coming to this with presence kind of gets lost over the years.
Mm.
And then people come in and they want new tricks to
Oh, yeah.
revitalize their erotic life or snatch their attention because this is so boring. What can we add?
Mm.
And this work is very much about consciousness. Like, how can we shift from the mindset I just described, where I think I'd rather watch a movie, than do the same old thing.
Mm.
Um, that's so predictable, is how to recover curiosity and erotic innocence,
Mm.
sort of like erasing the mind of all the expectations and the models and seeing. We started out with you doing a contact improv week. Like,
Mm.
what is co arising as we key off of each other and
Mm.
really attuning very deeply to
Mhm.
what's here, which requires a lot of presence, and then going into that kind of flow state where that can be
Mm.
quite joyful and like where you're not so preoccupied with doing it right. You're just kind of in the experience, and the experience is inviting more of you to come forward. Like, I'm sure you've had those times when you're like, whoa, I didn't know I could be that good. Like,
Yeah.
it's just relationally something, and we can't repeat that.
Mm.
People are looking for the formula. That was great. I want that again. Now, what did we do? No,
Mm.
that doesn't work that way. It's the entering, and even with awkwardness, uncertainty, I
Mhm.
don't know, um,
Mm.
so the willingness to shift how we enter and orient to let the mystery come back in, uh, and then to get off of this idea that sex looks like this. And if I can't do that now at this stage of life, I guess sex is no longer on the table. And I'm so much about, um, okay, we can like let go of that script, that model is not, it's not like, how can we get you back there? Like, do the
Mhm.
training to get you back there. It's much more of like, okay, so now we go to these other layers of
Mm.
eroticism and discover what form of expression it has at this stage of life for you.
Mm.
So I think there's something very hopeful in
Mm.
that, as opposed to, oh, this is a death knell, aging, it's over, game over, to feel like, yeah, certain games may no longer work, just like, you know, certain sports
Mhm.
people aren't going to play. They've got bad knees, they've got problems with their hips, but it doesn't
Mm.
mean they can't move their body anymore and have great pleasure in that.
Yeah. Or like maybe they had to give up tennis, but they took up painting and they're like, wow, there's this whole world of painting that I never would have, discovered if
Exactly.
I hadn't given up tennis. It's like,
Exactly.
yeah, it's
Yes,
like it's that evolution model, right? That growth and
exactly.
evolution. Yeah.
Exactly. It's in
Mm.
over till it's over, like till,
Mm.
and who knows, but
Yeah.
till our last breath, we're still erotic
Mm.
beings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit, it's almost a little bit kind of going a bit counterculture as well, right? Or trying to build your own framework, like because we're like that. The messaging is that, once you're over a certain age, often hear women even coming to me once they've been told once they're over 40 that,
Yeah.
their sex life is gone. Never mind when they're over 70, So
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
um, it can be quite revolutionary in that way, in that it's very empowering, It's like it can help with new belief systems as well, around this
Exactly.
growth and evolution,
Yes. Yes.
and
So
that's very freeing, I think, for people.
totally. But let's understand that as practitioners, we have the same mindsets and beliefs
Hmm.
generally as everyone else. So a big part of this training, sometimes I describe passion and presence as offering a realistic but hopeful and transformative model of
Hmm.
sex across the lifespan. Realistic is important because,
Mm.
what we see is generally not very realistic
Yeah.
in media and so forth. Um, but if we're going to have a different kind of vision, if we're going to re-envision, if we're going to expand, if we're going to work with consciousness, if we're going to be wakeful, if we're going to hold this growth model, that is a retraining for many helping professionals
Mm.
around, as opposed to we just have to get people back to okay so they can perform. So that's something that I do try to instill from the beginning and reinforce again and again is this different orientation to sex and eros that
Mm.
we are holding for our clients. And hopefully they will feel invited to expand their sense of what's possible as well. But it starts with us.
Mm. Oh, it's beautiful. Well, Macy, I am jealous of anybody who is going to be starting on this journey fresh with you. Actually, I am curious because I know you had some amazing guest speakers as well. Tammy Nelson, who talked about infidelity. Wow, mind blowing.
Mind blowing, right?
Yeah,
So
I do. I remember she said she actually also used the analogy of the car. And she was saying that, okay, you might not have been the driver, but you were in the car when it went off the road. Why did it go off the road? Like, oh,
wow,
yeah,
you
she's.
remember incredible things. Yeah,
um, Also, you had Luis Mojica, who was,
told me that.
yeah, around trauma. So I'm curious, will you have those guest speakers come back or will you have some new
Most of
people?
them,
Yeah,
not everybody. I'm going to have a few new people,
yeah.
and I'm still talking with a few people
Hmm.
um, who will go into the pieces around consensual non-monogamy and kink,
Hmm. Yes,
um, which are really important. But yes, Luis is coming back, Luis Mojica, Tammy
hmm.
Nelson, Halko Weiss, uh, Rachel Kieran's coming back for the ethics and diversity, equity, and inclusion part.
Great. Yeah.
So, yeah, I teach about 80% of it. And then it's nice to have some other people come in who are experts in certain areas, uh,
Hmm.
which I think makes it very rich.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's great.
Yeah,
Okay. So, yeah, and best of luck with it. And I hope,
thank you.
yeah, whoever is in your group will, I'm sure, I know they will get so much out of it. And
Yeah,
like I
thank
said,
you.
it's been just a wealth of information and something that even very early on in the training, I was able to start really integrating into my work. And I think that's something that's really helpful, that it's really so applicable. And there's also a lot of encouragement to start integrating it into your, whether you're doing therapy or coaching or whatever. So, yeah, so absolutely the best of
Yeah.
luck with the next
Oh,
Passion and
thank you.
Presence. Yeah.
This has been so great, and I'm not
Mm.
kidding. I feel inspired.
Oh, good.
So I hope the people who are hearing about it, but I feel inspired. Thank you. And
Mm,
it's infectious just feeling into what your takeaways were and how the model's living in you. So thank you for
mhm.
that. Thank you so much.
No, thanks, Macy.